All right, boys and ghouls, boils and ghouls. That's what I meant to say. Tales from the Crypt. I got to do that series eventually. I might do little short videos on each episode of Tales from the Crypt down the line. But let's talk Psycho 2 from 1983, which is, I think, one of the greatest sequels ever made. Now, what a huge monumental task that they had here making a sequel to Psycho. Like, Psycho is a masterpiece. It's an absolute classic. So to have 22 years later, 23 years later, because yeah, it's set 22 years after the events of the first movie. So it was filmed in 82, so it came out in 83, yeah. So it's 22 years after the first movie. Just the idea that someone was able to make a sequel to this and not have everyone start saying, "Yo, you're crazy." Like you're going to make a sequel to Psycho? Like but the reason this movie works so well is it feels organic. It feels like the natural progression of Norman Bates' character and his life. This all feels like it feels like Psycho. It feels like it's in the Psycho universe. And he feels like Norman Bates. Like there's so much stuff in this movie that you can just picture Norman doing, and all of it makes sense. It doesn't feel forced. None of it feels manufactured. It feels a part of the Psycho universe, and 3 also, but to a lot lesser of an extent. I love Psycho 3 also. Psycho 4 is, it's not that good. But Psycho 2 and 3 are sequels I feel not enough people have seen. Like, especially people who are fans of the first Psycho. At least watch Psycho 2, because it's such a great movie. We have Meg Tilly in here, Jennifer Tilly's sister, and when I first saw this years ago, I kept saying, I said, that sounds like Jennifer Tilly. And they have a very similar voice. And I knew it wasn't Jennifer Tilly. And then I saw it was Meg Tilly, and I said, "Oh, it's got to be her sister." And I looked it up. Sure enough, it is. And you can tell just listening to her. Like, she sounds just like Jennifer Tilly. They have the same voices, those siblings. We have Vera Miles back here as Lila Crane, and we have obviously Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, which his performance in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. Like, just like the first movie. Absolutely amazing performance by Anthony Perkins in this movie. So basically, the plot for this, for people who haven't seen it, go and see it. Like, after I finish this plot synopsis. But we have Norman 22 years after the events of Psycho, and him killing Marion Crane and Arbogast, the investigator, and a few other women that he told the psychiatrist at the end. And he did his due diligence. He did his time. He was away for 22 years. He did old therapy, and now he's better. So he gave back to society. He did his time, and now he's coming back and trying to be a productive member of society. And the people in town and stuff won't let him. They won't just let him be. And I think this is a great idea for the sequel to Psycho. To have him coming out of this hospital, this mental institution that he's been in, and have him basically cured for a little bit, or in remission at least, because he's pretty normal when he comes out, and he's trying to do the right thing. He gets a job at the diner, and he's trying to work there, but people keep messing with him and trying to make him feel like he's losing his mind again, until the point that he starts thinking that his mother's back and his mother's calling him and that she's killing people. That's such a great concept and a great idea for this sequel. So let's talk Psycho 2 from 1983. So we open up with a recap, basically, with just the shower scene when Norman's or mother stabs Marion to death in the shower. And then we just get a shot of the house in the background and Psycho 2. So good. Just an awesome opening. It's just the shower scene from the first movie, but just being able to see that again, and then just going right into this new story, is awesome. And the Bates Motel and the house look awesome in this movie. I'm pretty sure it's the same set because I'm pretty sure it was on Universal Studios. Pretty sure that it was on their lot. So they still had the sets from the original Psycho for the hotel and for the house. And it just looks so good here, same as in the first movie. Like, what an iconic location, the Bates Motel and the house, and what a great creepy ass house it is. So then we're in the courthouse, and they're deeming Norman restored to sanity, and that he's to be released. And I love how Lila Crane is here in the courtroom, and I love her little speech here when she starts saying, like, what about, I'm Lila Loomis. So she married Sam Loomis from the first movie, Marion's girlfriend, and she ends up saying, I'm Sam Loomis, and like, what about all the his victims, all the people that he killed? Like, can you restore them? And has like a petition of like all the families of the victims from Norman, and them saying they do not want him released. And it's a great opening scene. Like, I really makes you think on both sides of it. Like, do you think that it's right that they're letting Norman out? I mean, he killed multiple people, but he was insane. And now that he's been in a hospital for 22 years and he got supposedly the help he needed, should he be released? Like, what do you guys think? Do you think that he should have been released here, or that he should have been in prison forever, the rest of his life? Because that's the point that Lila brings up, and I just love that about that first scene in the courthouse. How it just makes you think of both sides. Like, all right, well, maybe he did it. He got his help. He was away for 22 years. Now they're trying to give him another shot. They're saying that he's mentally sane again, and he should be able to continue living a healthy, normal life now. Or makes you think on the other side of it that no, he should fucking rot in jail until he dies, because this guy's a fucking crazy murderer. I love that whole opening scene in the courthouse. Now, obviously, we know that Lila Crane and Meg Tilly, was it Mary, I think her name, if I remember correctly, are working together to make Norman think that he's going crazy. And they start right off the bat, like when the guy's dropping Norman off, and he looks at the house for the first time, and he sees the blind open, and then he sees it close, and he said, I see somebody. So they're already starting to plant the seed in his head as soon as he gets home. Like, these people are relentless, but again, like, I could see Lila's side of it. I mean, this guy killed his sister. Like, so I could see both sides, and that's why it worked so well for me. Because it's not, the movie didn't try to play it one angle or the other. They pretty much stayed neutral in the center lane and said, this is one way it could have went, this is the other way it could have went. Norman's trying to go and live a normal life. Lila's trying to make him go nuts to put him back away in prison or an asylum for the rest of his life. And they start mad quick. And what I also love about this sequel is that you really feel for Norman. Like, even in the first movie, you kind of feel for him. Like, the first time you see it, like, before you find out the twist. Because you think that his mom's a killer. And you really feel bad for Norman. But this movie, you definitely just start to feel for him. Because he is doing his best. He's trying to do everything right. So his parole officer, whoever it is, got him a job at the diner. Excuse me. He's going to go work there. But then he has Mr. Toomey, who's been running the Bates Motel while he's away, and he's basically running like an adult hotel. He's like rents a room out for a few hours, lets teenagers and young adults party and get high and fuck, and then leave. And Norman's not having any of this. He ends up firing Toomey right on the spot. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm back now, and this is my hotel and my house back there. I want you gone by the morning." And Toomey doesn't take kindly to that. There's a really cool shot of Norman's, and he opens his eyes wide like this before he looks at his mother's door. Then the door kind of like shifts a little bit, kind of, I guess, showing what he's seeing in his mind. and he starts hearing his mother's voice and is bringing back memories from him living in this house. It's the first time he's been in this house in 22 years. And I think they do a great job of just capturing like what's going on in Norman's head. And that again, that he's trying so hard to stay right, but then he has so many people that are trying to fuck him left and right to try to just either provoke him like Toomey does, or like Lila's trying to set him up and make him think that he's killing people. Like it's such a great sequel, man. Like if anyone hasn't seen Psycho 2 and they're watching this, please just go watch the movie and then come back and watch this if you want. Like, oh, it's so good. I love how the woman at the diner, which we find out obviously at the end of the movie, is Norman's real mother. But I love how she says, like, I think it's very Christian to forgive and forget. Yeah. Well, first, I don't give a fuck. I'm not religious or Christian. But two, it's like, yeah, forgive and forget's fine. But when you're a fucking mass serial killer, basically, and a psychopath, think that could be an exception to the Christian forgive and forget like rule. And we know that Mrs. Spool, his real mother, the woman at the diner, pushed for him to get him here working at the diner to, get close to Norman and to reveal her identity to him near the end of the movie. And like this is where you start feeling for Norman, like when Mary drops the pie on the ground and the cook comes out and says, "Girl, what did you drop again this time?" And Norman immediately stands up for her and takes the blame and says like, "No, sir, it was me. I dropped it. It wasn't her." Knowing that it's his first day on the job, like what are they going to do? Like she's been there presumably a decent amount of time. So why let her take the blame when he can? Like that's nice of him. Like, and he shows a lot of kindness in this movie. Oh, so Mary's only been working there for 4 days, she tells Norman, which makes sense because we know that her and Lila, I forget, is she Lila's daughter? Not sure about that. I think so. She's related to Lila somehow, but we know that it's their plan working together, and so it makes sense that she'd only start this job a few days before. I mean, would Lila be able to find out that this is where he was going to be working in order to get Mary there to start working there, to get closer to Norman? It's possible. And then he offers her, his hotel and says she's having a fight with her boyfriend, she says, and that he kicked her out of the apartment, and now she has nowhere to stay for the night. And he says, "I own a hotel. Like you could stay in one of the rooms." Now, just knowing Norman's past, because at the beginning here it seems like she doesn't know, but obviously she does. I would be so wary, man, to go into this guy's house with him, knowing all the crazy shit he's done and what a lunatic he was 22 years ago and all the people he murdered. Damn, man, like Mary's taking some chance, like just to pull this whole plan off with Lila. And as big as a dick Warren Toomey is, I like his character, and I forget what his name who plays him, but he does a great performance in this too. Like I really like the character of Toomey, and he is not happy that Norman just fired him, like at all. And god damn, man, she sounds just like her sister. Her sister, Jennifer Tilly, Megan Tilly, her sister sounds just like her. If you close your eyes, some of the lines that she delivers and stuff, you would think it's Jennifer Tilly. I love the quick little scene while she's calling her, I'm guessing it's a pretend boyfriend, making believe to call her boyfriend and see if, he's over the fight and if she can come back. And when Norman opens the cabinet in his kitchen, he sees the poison that he used to poison his mother and her lover. Love that little scene of just him, just the way he looks at it and he goes and moves it, and you can just imagine all the thoughts going through his head, like the memories of, yeah, this is what I used to kill my mother. Like, I can't imagine those thoughts that he's having. I like Norman's style, man. He always loves having sandwiches and milk. I love my milk, and I love sandwiches. I love this shot of the knife when he asks her to eat, dinner with him, the milk and sandwiches, And he says that he didn't bring any cutlery with him. He's been away for a long time. And she says, well, people usually leave like even just a butter knife, around. And she looks in the drawer and finds the knife that he used. Maybe it's not the same knife that he used, but it looks like the same knife that he killed his victims with. And when he's going to cut the the sandwich in half for her, that you get like a nice shot of the blade and like the reflection coming off of it, and you can again just see in Norman's eyes and just the way he's acting. It's like he's holding a knife again, and he's so conflicted with that. Like you could see it through. I mean, God, Anthony Perkins is so amazing. Just like even when he's not talking, just his emotions that he shows up through his facial expressions, everything is just perfect with that. And I love how she's Mary's like, anything wrong, Norman? And then he snaps out of it. And he's like, no, everything's fine. And then he cuts the sandwich for her. Man, Norman's mom's room is real nice looking. Like, it's a nice looking room because, I mean, it makes sense. It's a gorgeous house. And I love how she goes right to the mother's room after they have that nice little conversation of Norman saying that, what if I needed you to stay over tonight? And her asking, why would you need me? And him saying, I haven't been in this house, much less alone, in so many years. And like this house has to do with a lot of my problems. So like I need you to stay. It would help me. And she agrees. So then he goes up with her to get like sheets, and she goes right to the mom's room because she knows that's his mom's room. And she plays dumb when he says, what room is this? Oh, it belonged to my mother. And then she just barges in. She's like, if I don't know what happened to you in the past, but you're going to have to face your fears and confront them if you want to get better. And just barges in the room. And just the whole idea here of all these things in his house that haunt him and his memories, and the way that Lila and Mary are pushing on those things so much, and just like they're like the puppet master with this playing this, what's the word I'm looking for? Pulling the strings. That's it. Pulling the strings, and just it's an evil plan, man. Like it really is. But again, like, can you blame them or not? Let me know. Then we have a drunk Mr. Toomey come to the diner and starts talking terribly to Mary and saying, I want a piece of what Norman got last night, and you're screwing a psycho and all of that. And then we see the letter, or the note from Mother on the wheel that has all the order papers. And it says, don't let that little whore in my house again. Love, Mother. Man, to see that as Norman and being so confused of like, my mother's dead, but here's like a note right there from her. And then it disappears afterwards, so it makes him seem even more crazy. And I love when Toomey gets up and he's like, come on, wacko, come on. He starts arguing with Norman. And then, again, Norman looks down at the cake with the knife in it. And you can tell that he doesn't want to kill. Like, he doesn't want to hurt anybody anymore. He looks at that knife. He easily could pick it up and stab this guy to death. And he ends up just turning around and walking back into the kitchen. Like, good for him that he's actually trying to stay on the straight and narrow. And then Toomey just gets thrown out of there because he's a drunken mess and an asshole. And I love how crazy they all, like, see Norman. That they all look at him like he's nuts. And I mean, sure, he's got the whole baggage of everything he's done in the past. But, like, when he starts saying, I'm telling you, there was a note on that wheel from my dead mother. Then the cook, Mary, and Mrs. Spool are all looking at him just like, this poor psychopath. And says that you're tired, go to take the rest of the afternoon off. But this is when you start really feeling for Norman. It's a big-ass thing of fudge that Mary gives Norman that she got from her grandmother. She makes great fudge. And then Mary ends up showing up at the house and saying that she didn't end up staying at her friend's house because she said that she was going to move in with her friend in town. And turns out that it's a one-room apartment, and she's trying to sleep next to her friend fucking her boyfriend all night. And asks Norman, "Do you have any idea what that's like?" And he's just noisy. That's so great. And she goes up and takes a shower, and that's when we see the little hole in the wall and an eye looking through it. Very good scene. Now, I'm not a big classical music guy, even though I went to college for a year for classical music. But I love the Moonlight Sonata. I've always loved that composition, and we get to hear and see Norman playing it on the piano, and that draws Mary in, and she starts looking at him playing, and just that whole scene is great. Like with him playing the piano, Moonlight Sonata, it sounds wonderful. Now I wonder if Anthony Perkins was actually playing the piano here, because I'm looking at his hands, and it looks like he's playing like actual notes. So I wonder if Anthony Perkins was a musician, or if he knew how to play a little bit of piano or something like that. Because it doesn't seem like it's ADR'd in the piano music. It seems like he's playing it. Like if you play any piano or even a little bit, and you watch that scene when Mary's looking at him and his back is to her playing the piano, you could see that he's playing the actual notes, or what look like the actual notes. So that's something I want to look into now, but that would be very cool to find out that he was actually playing. So then Norman gets his first call from his mother, well, who claims to be his mother. And I love his line when he says, he says, "My mother's dead." And then he says, "Mr. Toomey, if this is you, then you were sicker than I ever was." Love that line. And then Mr. Toomey is packing up his office, ready to leave after being fired. And then we see someone in Mother's costume come up and stab him in the cheek or in the side of the face and kills him. And it's crazy near the end of this movie that we find out that Norman didn't kill anybody in this movie, except for his mother at the end, Mrs. Spool. He doesn't kill anybody else. So, I mean, such a good idea they had for this movie. Such a great script that they wrote for this sequel. Like, I couldn't think of a better sequel to Psycho than this one that we got. Like, they could have went so many different directions with the sequel, and 99 of them probably would not have worked, or just not been a good movie. But this what they came up with here with this script and story, it's excellent. I really love the score in this movie too. This has as underrated as this movie is. The same with the score. The score is very underrated for Psycho 2, and I love it. It's very different from the original Psycho, but it fits this movie perfectly. Like, it's such a great score. I also think it's such a great touch that Mary's name is Mary Samuels. And that was the alias that Marion Crane uses in the first movie, Marie Samuels. So, I mean, this is Mary, that was Marie, but same thing. Which I have to wonder, does he know her last name, Norman? I wonder if he knows Mary's last name. Because if he heard her full name, Mary Samuels, you'd think he would remember that as the alias that Marion used. Like, especially when he was interrogated by Arbogast and he looks through the sign-in book and sees, Marie Samuels, and this, Sam's her boyfriend and stuff. So you'd think that he would remember that. But then again, I mean, he was out of his mind. And it's been 22 years since then. So I guess he could forget that. But that's if he even knows her last name, which I'm not sure if he does. Then we get another great shot when Norman's like finding it hard to even get up the stairs to his front door at his house, and he looks up in the window and he sees the old woman like walk in front of the window and then walk out of frame. Awesome shot. So he runs up to his mother's room where he saw the woman in the window, and he sees another note that says, "Get rid of that slut or I'll kill her. Love, Mother." I love the notes that Lila is leaving around. Whether it's Lila or Mary, I love it. Like, it's haunting in a way. Like, just, again, like putting yourself in Norman's mind as much as you can. I mean, he's a fucking psycho. That's the name of the movie, with a 2 on the end. But he's a psychopath, so I mean, it's hard to really know what he's thinking. excuse me, but I think it's haunting seeing though, like imagine being him and then seeing these notes, thinking that it's from his mother, his dead mother, and he knows that he killed her when he was a kid, and that she's been dead for all these years. It's gotta make him start really go spinning in his mind, like, and not start to blur the lines of reality of what's real, what's not. Like, am I imagining this or is this really happening? So well done. Then we have the boyfriend and girlfriend who sneak into the basement of Norman's house to hook up and make out and fuck, presumably. And I love that she gets freaked out from hearing a sound in the other room. She climbs out the window, and the boyfriend's looking out the door. He comes to get out of the window too, and Mother the killer comes and starts stabbing him to death. And the potatoes that he has, like a pile of potatoes, start like rolling down while he's getting stabbed. And then the cool shot of his hand on the window, and like it drags down, and you can see like his fingers, like the smudges as it's coming down. That's such a great shot too. There's a lot of great shots in this movie, and the cinematography is amazing. Like, this movie is such a beautiful looking movie. Man, Lila or Mary had to really switch his mother's room back real fast. He went up there when he saw the note, and all the blankets were taken off the furniture. It was all nice and set up, the room. Then when Mary comes and he goes back up to the room to show her, all the sheets are back over the furniture. Her dresses aren't in the closet. Like, they really had to get in there fast and cover everything back up and move everything around. Like, that's a little ridiculous. So the cops show up at Norman's front door and say that they have the girlfriend of the boyfriend who was just killed in his squad car, and she is terrified and won't come into the house, and tells Norman that she's saying that it was in the basement. She saw her boyfriend get killed by a old woman dressed in black. Looks just like your mother, Norman, right? And they go down and look in the fruit cellar, and everything is cleaned up. Everything looks fine. And they ask him, they said, "Did you clean up down here?" And Norman says, "I haven't been down here since I've been back." And Mary comes in and lies for him and says, like, "No, I did. I cleaned up down here the other day. Like, I hate a dirty house, don't you?" Like, I mean, eventually we start to see her, that she starts having feelings for Norman, and she starts seeing that, and I don't mean like romantic feelings, but just that she cares about this guy, and that she starts feeling real guilty about what her and Lila are doing to him. And I love that too. Like, they could have easily just made that a twist, and just we find out that it's Lila and Mary doing all this to try to push him over the edge, and that's it. And she turns out being just a total bitch. But I love how they turn it around and make her start feeling guilty and start feeling, sorry for Norman, and that she doesn't want to have any part of it anymore at a certain point in the movie. And then we see Lila and the sheriff talking, and her saying, "Why haven't you arrested him for murder? Like, it's all over town what happened to that boy." And he's saying, like, "I can't arrest him without proof or evidence, and especially that he has an alibi," and tells Lila about the girl that he has living there with him, and they say that they were together at the time of the murder, and let's just see if the kid comes home. Vera Miles is amazing in this. Like, she gives such a great performance. Like, I love Vera Miles' acting in this whole movie, and I think she does a great job yet again, like in the first movie, but she has I wouldn't say more, but she's about the same amount of like screen time in this movie than the first one. But God, I love it. Like, she just kills it in this movie. And yeah, Mary is her daughter, Lila Crane's daughter. That's what I thought. And then that's when we get the reveal and see Lila sneak up on Mary in the house and say that, "Why did you lie to the cop?" And say that Norman had an alibi, and she's saying because he couldn't have killed the kid, that she was in the window like they planned, her and Lila planned. He came in, he went in the room, left everything in the room, the note included. Then he accidentally got locked in the attic for hours. And so there's no way that he could have done it. And then I love Lila coming and says, "Who cares if he did it? Like, we just want him recommitted." And she says, "Mom, he's innocent." And I love how she fires back with, "Innocent? He killed your aunt and the six other people. Like, we just want him recommitted again. Like, this could have been it." And saying that he'll kill you to marry, and he'll kill you like all the others, and such a great dynamic that both of them have together. Like, I love all the scenes that Mary and Lila are in together. This is a great scene too, when Norman goes in the bathroom and he goes to flush the toilet, and there's something like a shirt or something stuffed in there, and when he flushes it, it turns red, and the blood and water just like flows over the top of the toilet onto the floor, and then from the tub drain, the blood's coming up from there too. That's such a great scene. I love how they shot that. I think it's cool though. Again, we see when Mary's cleaning up the bathroom, she tells Norman to go downstairs to make a drink for them. Then she has a feeling that she's being watched, and she looks up and sees the peephole again and an eye behind it, and she runs down like to the top of the stairs and screams down to Norman, and he comes from the kitchen. So it's like she's confused because she doesn't know who that is. Now that's another great jump scare done right, is when Mary has her gun and she's going to the room right next door to the bathroom, and she looks through the peephole from the side. She saw the eye looking in to the bathroom, and she looks through the peephole and she sees the bathroom. Then the eye of somebody else comes into view in the peephole and looks right back at her and scares the shit out of her. That's a great jump scare. Like, it's so good. It's creepy, and when the first time you see this, you don't know who it is or what the hell's going on. It's so effective. I love that. There's this really quick shot of Norman in front of the stained glass window or whatever on the door. I love that stained glass. Like, that's such a beautiful shot. And I love how Mary flat out tells Norman, like when he comes upstairs to her and says that it's my mother, she's downstairs. And she says, "Did you see her?" He says, "No." "Did you hear her?" "Yeah." "And all right, let's go downstairs and find out." No, she'll kill you." And then how she just says, like, "Norman, it's just someone trying to drive you crazy again." Like, I love that, how she just blatantly, purposely throws out their plan, basically, Lila and her plan, to Norman to tell him, basically, someone is trying to make you crazy again. Awesome. I love when she's sleeping and he's staying in the room with her because he's afraid to go downstairs because there's some other, and he's holding the knife, like right next to her, the bed she's sleeping in, and she wake up and she says, "Norman, like, what are you doing?" And he says, like, she's like, "Put the knife down, like, you can stay up here." And he's just freaking out, and he looks out the window and he says, "I'm starting to become confused again, aren't I?" And she says, "No, of course you're not." And he just at the fucking drop of a hat turns around holding the knife, and he's like, "Don't lie to me, like, not you." And she looks at her gun, like, about to, like, maybe reach for her gun if she needs to. Like, I love how his acting is just fucking phenomenal, man. How he just turns from, like, calm and confused and worried to just kill mode almost, until he talks himself down, and Mary helps talk him down. So his doctor comes by, asks him if he wants tea, and the doctor says, "No, coffee if you have it." I wouldn't take a drink from this fucking guy for any reason. It's Norman Bates. He's a psychopath. He murdered his mom and her lover by poisoning. And you're going to take a drink that he makes for you? I mean, sure, like, he's doing better. Like, in the doctor's eyes, he doesn't know all this craziness really going on. Still, I would never take that chance. Are you serious? Take a drink, a cup of coffee from Norman Bates? No, I'll pass. Or I'll make my own coffee, thank you. I love how the doctor basically comes out and tells Norman. He's like, he told her Mary went to town for some reason. He doesn't know why. She didn't tell him. And he says that, do you remember Lila Loomis? I feel like he should have said Lila Crane because she wasn't Lila Loomis back then. But I mean, I guess he gets the gist. And said that Mary is Lila's daughter. And that's why she went to town to go see her. That they're the ones trying to. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm burping so much. Probably the coffee. Says that they're the ones fucking with him. They're the ones trying to mess with his mind and push him over the edge again and try to undermine reality for him. And he starts saying to him, says like, yeah, but they're not doing it. It can't be them. It's my mother. And he says, what do you mean it's your mother? He says, but my mother's alive. I'm like, I saw her, you saw her in the window. And he said, like, no, that was Mary. And then him saying with the phone calls, like, if Mary was there when when the phone rang. So then there was Lila doing it. And yeah, it all makes perfect sense. But the first thing I think every time I see this scene is he doesn't immediately recommit Norman. Like, if you had this psychopathic guy, this maniac, who was a murderer, and he's been in prison or not, in an institution for 22 years, and he starts saying that he's seeing his dead mother. Come on, man. Like, that's at least get him back into, like, heavy therapy. If not, back to the institution. Like, any normal doctor would do that. So Mary goes to meet her mother, Lila, in the hotel that she's staying in town. And she admits to calling earlier that day and pretending to be his mother. And then she goes on to say, like, stop, putting towels down toilets, stop staring through peepholes. And then that's when she says, whoa, I didn't do any of that. And she doesn't believe her, Mary, but we know that that's the truth. Because it's Mrs. Spool, like his real mother, that's doing all the killings, and that's been staring through the peephole, and that's been doing all of this, basically, except for leaving the notes and making the phone calls. And then the doctor ends up taking Norman to the cemetery and digging up mother's coffin, and her skeleton and corpse and stuff looks great. Like, it looks really good. And basically says to Norman, like, do you believe me now? Like, it's like, your mother's dead and buried. Like, your mother's not calling you, and you're not seeing your mother. Like, it's all Lila and Mary. And then they get a phone call. After Norman reveals to Mary that he knows that Mary is Lila's daughter, and that they're the ones that have been torturing him. And I love how he uses the word torture. Like, when he says it's my mother's dead and buried, she's not the one torturing me. I love that he uses that word, because that's basically what they're doing. Like, they are torturing this guy. And that's why I said earlier, it's like you really start to feel for Norman in this movie. Like, a lot. Like, you see how hard he's trying. And that he's just trying to live a normal life after this, as normal as he possibly can. And these people, especially his mother, are torturing him. And he goes and picks the phone up and says, "Oh, hi, is this Mrs. Loomis? How are you doing?" And no one's there. Then he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mother. I didn't mean to insult you." And then Mary's coming and saying, like, let me have the phone. And then picks it up, says, Lila, are you there? And no one answers. And puts the phone back to Norman. And he says, "Oh, sorry, we were interrupted, Mother." And just all of that. His acting is fucking amazing there. And she runs upstairs, smart thinking, and gets on the other phone and picks up and says, "Norman, this is your mother. Like, I want you to hang up now." And she says, "It doesn't sound like my mother. Wait, this is your mother. I want you to hang up." And smart move. It's kind of like a Ginny from Friday the 13th Part 2. Like, getting inside the mind of the killer and trying to just make him realize it's not his mother. Now Norman's figured out that it's not Mrs. Bates. She's dead and buried. It's his real mother. Uh-oh. Now the sheriff wants to see Norman out down by the swamp. That's where he hid all the car and all the bodies. And they ended up finding Toomey's briefcase or suitcase, whatever, in the swamp. And saying, "When's the last time you saw him, Norman?" And Norman said, "I fired him." And I haven't seen him since. And she ends up, and that's all he needs. Like the sheriff says, all right, that's cool, you can go. Like, really? Like, there's no other questions like, you want for him? Like, you found Toomey's shit in the swamp, which means he's dead. Like, most likely. You have no other questions for Norman? That's weird. But then he starts questioning Mary. And I love that whole little mini interrogation, too. Then she asks the sheriff if there's any chance that Norman was adopted. And he says, not that I know of. And I've been living here all my life. And says, basically tells her that there's no reason for you and your mother to stay around here anymore. Like, basically get out of town. And she says, we didn't break any laws or anything. And then they end up finding a car in the swamp. And guy asks, the sheriff asks, is there anybody in it? He says, can't tell. So, I don't remember. I think that's Toomey's car, right? With Toomey in it? We'll see in a sec. Oh, this kill is great, man. Well, so the doctor's spying on Lila, and he's hanging out on the side of the hotel, and she's walking up the stairs to the house. And she goes in the house to the fruit cellar, and she takes one of the stones off, and there's the wig and the mother dress and the knife, and you see someone dressed like mother coming behind her, and she turns around and screams, and they take the knife and shove it right through her mouth and out the back of her out the back of her head. It looks awesome. Like, that's such a great kill. So yeah, it was Toomey's car, and Toomey's body's in the trunk. So they pull it out of the swamp. It has to be Anthony Perkins playing the actual piano, because he's playing another song on the piano. If he's not, if he doesn't know how to play piano, then that is some of the best fake like instrument playing I've seen in a movie. Like, it always drives me nuts as a musician when I watch a horror movie or any movie really, and there's a band and you know they're not playing. Like, the guitarist will be like, and they're not even actual chord shapes and stuff like that. It drives me nuts. But damn, man, if he isn't playing the piano, which I'm pretty sure he is, but if he's not, excellent fake playing. Like, it looks like he's playing the piano. So let me know if anyone knows out there if Anthony Perkins was a piano player, because I'll look it up after this, but I'd love to find that out. But now we see Norman really losing it, because he ends up getting the call from his doctor in the hotel parlor, and says that this is where Lila's been making all the calls from to your house. And he starts calling him mother and starts talking to him as if that's his mother. And he's saying, no, this is your doctor. And it's, no, all right, mother. And then Mary grabs the phone and says, like, Lila, and it hangs up. And then he picks the phone up again. Same thing. Like, do I have to kill her? Do I have to kill her mother? Like, about killing Mary. It's eerie, man. Like, it's really terrifying. Like, being in her position and in Norman's position. That he's really losing his mind again. And he doesn't deserve to. Like, of all the good that he's been trying to do in this movie, these people, his real mother, Mrs. Spool, and Lila and Mary really fucked him up again. And it's sad. Oh, Jesus, man. Anthony Perkins is fucking a legend. Like, when he's on the phone saying, yes, mother, and the grin on his face, like, oh, his facial expressions are just perfect. And then we have Mary dressing up in the mother outfit and trying to get Norman to snap out of it and stand in front of him, say, like, Norman, I'm your mother. Like, so I'm standing right in front of you. You can't be on the phone with her if I'm right here. And he's still just like, yes, mother, like, still on the phone. And she goes upstairs, and the doctor sneaks up behind her and scares her. So when she turns around, she stabs him by accident in like, almost near the heart, or in the heart. Then he falls over the stairs, the banister, and lands, and the chances of this happening, lands on the banister right on the knife, so it pushes it further into him and falls down. Like, it's cool. It's a cool kill, but I mean, what are the chances of that it's landing on the fucking railing? Come on. Man, and then Mary's like, because Norman's coming at her and like talking to her like he's his mother, and she stabs him a few times, and then feels bad about it. She's like, Norman, like, you're losing blood. And he's saying, the cops are going to be here. Like, stay down here. Like, mother, I can help you. And then he steps into the pile of rocks down there, and the rocks fall off. And I love how Lila's corpse looks, like just like laying in the pile that he buried under her, that was she was buried under. And then Mary sees that and just assumes that it was Norman. It's just like, you killed them all. Like, really? Then goes to stab him, and the cops are there and shoot her dead. Like, shoots Mary dead, man. Like, it's depressing movie, some of these parts. And I love when Mary gets shot by the cops, how the mother wig falls off of her head onto the floor, and then you just get a nice shot of the wig on the floor before it cuts to the city hall scene. Awesome. So we get a little similar scene to the ending psychiatrist monologue in the first movie, where the sheriff is saying when Norman has bandages, he's all bandaged up for his wounds, and he's waiting in the department, and the sheriff starts saying to, I guess, the DA or someone like that, saying that Lila and Mary were responsible for these murders, and that Mary killed Lila, her own mother, over Norman, and that she went crazy, and that they found the boy's body and Toomey's in the swamp, and said that Lila and Mary did it, and tried to blame it on Norman, or like maybe only Mary did it. But like either way, like she definitely killed the doctor, Dr. Raymond, and if you saw her at the end, like you wouldn't even question it. Like she was like completely crazy, dressed up in his mother's dress and wood and wig, and with the knife. Great scene. Then Norman gets to go home, and I love the shot of him looking up at the staircase. He just looks up at that awesome staircase in that house, and awesome. And then he goes into the kitchen, and then we have our nice ending when we get to reveal who his real mother is. And he's eating a sandwich in the kitchen. Then what a great shot when we get the full shot of the house, and then Mrs. Spool, or his real mother, walking up the stairs. That looks so good. And the same with the shot of her knocking on the door, and you see her silhouette. I love all of that. That looks so great. Then she sits down, and he starts asking, "Is it are you really my mother?" And she says that the name Spool doesn't mean anything to you, and that it was Nora Bates's maiden name. So his mother's, well, his what he always thought was his mother's maiden name. And she was saying that the mother Norma that he always thought was his real mother is really her sister, Mrs. Spool's sister, and that she got knocked up when she was real young, and she ended up going away. The state put her away for a little bit, and she wasn't able to take care of her newborn baby, and when she got put away is when Norma started taking care of Norman. And I love, again, like when he asks if she wants sugar or milk in her coffee or tea, that he pulls out the poison box. Like, awesome. Then just the whole conversation between the two of them here, like in the end, between his real mother here and Norman. Such a great ending scene. Like, I love this ending so much. So he poisons her, and then right when she's about to like start gagging from the poison, he just takes a shovel that was like right behind her and picks it up and smacks her on the head, and it breaks the chair as she falls down, and her body's convulsing a little bit. Awesome. And it's from then you get like a top down shot from the ceiling looking down at her body laying there, and then Norman takes her hands and crosses them, like, and then carries her body. Oh, it's such a great fucking ending scene. And then we just get the awesome scene of him carrying his mother up the stairs, same top-down angle as in the first movie, and brings her in and he's talking to her. Then once they're inside the room, he starts talking in mother's voice and saying, "Put me in my chair, I'm not tired." And like, let me look at the window, I want to keep my eye on you, boy. Make sure you don't get filthy girls coming around again. So awesome. Like, the voice sounds great as mother, and just, it sucks here, man, that he basically, now he's crazy again. Like, he's back at square one. where he started in the first movie. All those years before the events of the first movie. He snapped again. He's obviously back to crazy, and now he's talking to his real dead mother, and he's keeping her corpse around. Which, oh man, I love this sequel so much. If you haven't been able to tell, like, what a great sequel! It's one of my, like I said, one of my think not even one of my favorites. I think it's one of the best horror sequels ever made. And I know a lot of people who have that share that same opinion. But just everything in this, the score, the acting, especially from Perkins and from Vera Miles too, Meg Tilly. I mean, everybody does a phenomenal job in this, and just the cinematography, the way this movie's shot, it looks gorgeous, and so many awesome shots that they use. Everything. Like, I love everything about this movie. There's really not many, or if any, negatives I can give it. So, what do you guys think? You guys like Psycho 2? If you've seen it and you've got to the end of this, are you a fan of Psycho 2? Do you put it up there like I do? Some of the greatest horror sequels? Or do you not care for it? Do you like Psycho 3? Do you like that one better than 2? Do you like this one better than the original? Which I do know a few people who do prefer Psycho 2 to Psycho. Let me know. Leave it in the comments. And 7:50 a.m. Haven't slept yet, so I gotta get to sleep because I will have I'll have this uploaded, then I will probably head to sleep because I gotta be up around noon. Then we have 2 p.m. on my channel with Dave at Savage Zombie Reviews and my boy Sean at Sean Blue Digital. We are finishing up the Basket Case trilogy that Dave has not seen. He made it through 2/3 so far. So we got Basket Case 3, The Progeny, at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, and we will be finishing up the trilogy of Basket Case and the story of Dwayne and Belial. So, wherever you guys are from, hope you're having a great morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you guys soon. Take care, everybody.